All right, so today we're going to take a little bit of a step back from where we've been, focusing on obviously the trade market for certain Utah Jazz players, and we're going to be a little bit more optimistic. We're going to be talking about who I think is going to take the biggest steps forward in their games, or return to form rather, in this upcoming season. With that being said, it's your boy Ray Toops. If you're new to the channel and you like Utah Jazz content or NBA content in general, go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. And without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into this one. So for the sake of this video, we're going to leave the rookies out. Obviously, Kyle Filipowski, Cody Williams, and Isaiah Collier are going to have very well said and well put introductory numbers into the league. I think that there's going to be a little bit of a rough period for each of them. I think Isaiah Collier is going to come first. I think you'll probably see Cody Williams experience it just because of strength issues. And then for Kyle Filipowski, his are probably going to be on the deepest side of the ball. Offensively, I think he might have a couple slumps, but it's not going to be as obvious and clear as I think Cody Williams' slumps will be, and then by default Isaiah Collier at the end, because Isaiah Collier has also come from the turnover department, which takes a little bit of time to iron out, as we saw with Colin Sexton. But Sexton, I believe, will be an ideal teacher to explain to him the difference, because Colin Sexton over the last 51 games of the season was much more efficient with the rock in his hands and as a passer and just point guard in general. With that being said, though, let's go ahead and take a little bit of a jump. Obviously, Lauri Markkanen, there's nothing to be said about him. He's going to continue to be the person that he was. I expect him to play around 55 to 62-ish games. I don't think that, even though he should be healthy the majority of the year, I don't think that he's going to play a lot of the games where we play the Trailblazers or the Hornets or any of the bottom feeder teams that are down there with us, just because those are going to be the most winnable games for us. And if we do intend to actually tank, he can't play in the majority of those games. Will he play in some of them? I would say probably so, just so that the league isn't on our ass about it. But he'll probably just go ahead and sim the majority of those. Jordan Clarkson is going to be man number one. He has to have a resurgent season. Shooting 41.3% from the field and 29.4% from three-point range is not going to cut it. The trade market for him just literally evaporated because of this issue. I believe that he will obviously come out guns blazing. I don't think that he should start. Some people will say he should start. I don't think he should, because last season I didn't think he should have started, and he showed us a very strong sample size of why he had no business starting. However, it ended up messing up his rhythm, and when he went to the bench, he had some more productive games, but overall, his ceiling wasn't as high as it should have been or as it had been in the past, leading to his overall shooting splits being just so horrid on literally the second most shot attempts on the team with 15, right behind Lauri Markkanen, who had 16. I think that he will probably be seeing the trading block at some point this year. But if he doesn't, he just regardless has to be a much better scorer. He has to be more efficient. He has to take less shot attempts. And I think that a lot of the younger guys will end up taking a lot of his minutes, which is also why I think partially he would be open to being traded. But if he genuinely loves being in Utah and loves the vibe of everything, then he might be willing to stay around and just be a mentor piece and just be a scoring punch off the bench when the team actually is good. But by that time, in 3 years, he'll be, I believe, 37. So he'll be on the latter half of his NBA tenure, to say the least. John Collins, he just needs to continue to improve. I'm very fond of what he did in the second half of last year. In the beginning, it looked rough, specifically defensively. I'm a defensively minded guy. Watching bad defense and watching people be lost on defense pisses me off more than anything. Watching people not communicate on defense also pisses me off. And John Collins did a lot of that in the beginning. But after the trade deadline, when everybody saw him, oh, he's on the trade block, he's going to go, he low-key picked up what he needed to. Now, obviously, the team wasn't any good, but overall, his rotations, his communication, all that sort of stuff got better. From a three-point shooting standpoint, his shot did fall off in the second half of the season, and a lot of people don't talk about it because he did end up shooting 37.1% on 3.4 attempts, but during that last stretch of the year, he was hot dog water from three-point range. But because he was so good at the very beginning of the season, everybody ignored it, and I was right because I said he was going to return to form, he was going to get his shot back, but then eventually he slowly lost it. So I would like to see that be more consistent and him shoot closer to 38-39% like he was earlier on in the season, because he was a knockdown from the corners, to be quite honest with you. Keyonte George has to take a step forward. It's non-negotiable. Yes, 15 borderline, Last year he averaged 13, so 15 points I think is achievable for him. He had 2.8 rebounds, 4.5 assists. He was extremely turnover prone, but he also shot 39% from the field on 11 attempts and 33.4% from three-point range on 6 attempts. So those are terrible splits. No matter any way you slice them, they're terrible splits. The three-point percentage is higher than Jordan Clarkson's, albeit on 0.3 more three-point attempts, but it's still not good. Nobody's respecting that three ball. Now, he did have spurts where he was really good, but he also had spurts where he was really, really freaking bad. And the question is, for this year, how much development can we get out of him? I think that there's enough promise to justify putting him as a 2 guard. I don't think he's a point guard. A lot of people think that they're up in the air about it. A lot of people want him to fit into the point guard mold. I want Collin Sexton at that point guard spot. I think Keyonte George fits a lot better at the shooting guard spot, especially considering his pedigree and what he did in college. He was not running the point. So trying to make that transition to the NBA is a very stiff leap when you're going from high school being the last time that you did it on a consistent basis. I think that he has the ability to do it. I think his shot selection could get just a tad bit better. And overall, just his court vision needs to get better. Defensively, he needs to take strides. He is 6'4". He has put on a little bit of muscle to his frame. He's a little bit more in shape than he was in the past. So I have no reason to believe that he shouldn't be capable. And he has been healthy. Now, he did end up having, I believe it was that ankle injury, if memory serves me right, that lost him a couple of games. It was like a week and a half of basketball. But overall, last season, he played 75 games. So I think that he's going to be a candidate that's going to definitely take a step forward. Collin Sexton continue doing what he's doing. Walker Kessler needs to take a step forward. This is one of those things where he was really impressive his rookie year, but then he did the exact same thing, if not a little bit less offensively, his sophomore year. So I'm hoping that that injury to his elbow was actually part of the reason why he didn't end up taking as many corner threes and just three-point shots in general or middies as I hoped that he would have this last year. And honestly, why some of his aggressiveness probably lacked when it came to the glass, just because maybe a psychological thing and the effects of it, just the potential of it being a more serious injury later on. I believe that he will take steps forward. I think that this is his prove it year for a lot of people. And if he ends up being mediocre on offense the same way he was over the past couple of years, but still presides that same obvious defensive upside, there's going to be a lot of questions that have to be asked. Because where do you go from there? How much do you value him? Will he ever have an offensive game? How much will his bag be worth? And what the heck are the trainers doing that they can't buy this man a jump shot or make him more aggressive? Because that's an effort thing. Aggressiveness is an effort thing. You can miss a million shots. Angel Reese is the example of missing a million shots, but she grabs her board as much as she can and goes up with it. So if I could take Collin Sexton's mentality and put it in Walker Kessler's body this year, oh man, chef's kiss. I would love everything I saw. Even if he shot 28% from 3, taking 2 attempts a game, I would say there's enough promise there to buy into it. Defensively, I like what he does. He needs to get a little bit better when he comes to navigating screens. But overall, as a rim presence, he's been top 5 in the attempts that he's ended up defensing. So I like it. I think that he needs to take a step forward this year, though. Moving forward, we have Taylor Hendricks, who spent a lot of his year last year in the G League. Understandably so, he played 40 games at the regular season level, and that actually slipped my mind because most of them came during the back half of the season. I really didn't think that the disparity between his games and Bryce Sensabaugh's games had been that far because during the summer league, I watched them both play on the court together. But Bryce Sensabaugh, who also needs to take a step forward, ended up playing in 32 games, but only started in 11 games. And those obviously came in the latter half of the season as well because they were both G League brothers. And they just need to get better. Taylor Hendricks has been working on his strength. He's been working on his size. He's been working on his shot. I believe that he will have the ability to really take steps forward because in the 40 overall games that he played, he averaged 3.5 three-point attempts, shot 37.9% from them. So that's there. Overall field goal percentage on just 6 attempts, 45%. So I would like his shot volume to go up. I would like his percentages to go up, or at the very least maintain that three-point percentage, maybe touch 38.5 perhaps. That would be nice on about 4 or 5 attempts. I think that would be very nice because I believe that I think the people are giving up on him too early. I believe that a lot of people are calling into question Walker Kessler's things, and honestly so, because we have a very large sample size of him not being very good at certain things. Taylor Hendricks, people say just because he played in the G League for the majority of the year, he's a bust. Shut up. Not shut up, but just calm down. Calm down, let the man cook. If we get a large sample size of him playing a significant amount of minutes, mind you, he only averaged 21.4 minutes a game across 40 games and only had 23 starts. Has he been shaky at times? Absolutely. But he's also shown a lot of promise. But the promise goes under the radar because there's a lot of other guys that do a lot more flashy things, a lot more impressive things. Defensively, I love Taylor Hendricks. Off ball, I love Taylor Hendricks. Help side, I love Taylor Hendricks. Long, rangy, willing to contest anything. I watched that man guard Kevin Durant, and it wasn't terrific, but it also wasn't bad. And that would be a welcome to the league moment, in my opinion, because not very many people are going toe-to-toe with Kevin Durant. Not very many people will take that assignment, and he took it, and I appreciated that. It shows a lot of guts. It shows a lot of grit. I think that he's going to take steps forward. Not only do I think that he needs to, I think that he will. My prediction is that he will most certainly be a double-digit scorer. I think he will borderline. Last year, he averaged 7.3 rebounds, so I don't see a reason why he couldn't go for 8.5. I think that that's definitely something that we could see happen for him. I think that from an overall scoring standpoint, I think his load increases. I think his percentage from the field overall kind of decreases a bit. Maybe his three-pointers decrease a bit just because he has to get adjusted to the load. But as the season goes on, I think his numbers should normalize and he'll be a pretty solid piece. I don't think he's going to be obviously all-star caliber, but he's definitely going to show us why we picked him with a top 10 pick in the draft. Going forward, like I said, we're going to skip to Bryce Sensabaugh because he only had 11 starts. He had 18.3 minutes per game. He averaged 7.5 points. He shot 39% from the field on 6.5 attempts. He shot 29.6% from 3 on 3.6 attempts. And honestly, I think that his shot choice was part of the reason why his percentages were so bad, because a lot of times the shot probably shouldn't have gone up. But there were other times where he would just take a shot and he would just miss it. And the way he missed, I would be pissed because it was like, that's what we need. Like he gave me the Keyonte George syndrome, where you take the shot you're supposed to take, but you just miss it. It rims in and out, it clanks, whatever the case may be. You just missed that shot. But I'm like, oh, you saw it. You understood the floor. You understood the flow of the offense. You understood everything that needed to go on with this possession. You ended up with the ball in your hands. You shot the shot that you were supposed to take, and it just didn't go in. And now I feel for him in that regard, because it's like, you thinking the game and playing the game are two different things, but they both have to work cohesively. The reason why the greats are the greats is because they thought the game at an elite rate and they played the game at an elite rate. And you put those things together and the skill showed. Bryce Sensabaugh, I think, thinks the game decently. He wasn't too turnover prone. He did have some games, but in the G League, it was a lot more concerning. I think that he just needs to take steps forward to think the game properly, just a little bit more, and then get those shots to fall. I think that he's capable. I don't know how much of a stride forward. I definitely think he will make an improvement. How big of an improvement, I think, depends on just what his overall minutes look like. Because if he doesn't have a large chunk of minutes and he's playing like 22 a night, I don't think that there's going to be much of an improvement to be seen, because on limited shot attempts, your numbers are going to go up and down, up and down, up and down. Now, if we see games where, Lauri ends up sitting or John Collins ends up sitting, then I think that he'll see obviously more minutes played in those. And by default, he'll have an opportunity to just really take a step up and show us what he's been working on. And I do look very much for those moments. I think that Juzang is an interesting piece. 20 games. He started in only 18.5 minutes, 7.2 points, 1.2 assists, 1.8 rebounds, 46% from the field on 5.5 attempts, 41.6% from 3 on 3.9 attempts, which I actually did not peep until I was going over the stats in creation for this video. I kind of don't know what to think of Johnny. I don't hate Johnny, but I also don't think the most highly of Johnny like some people do. For that reason, I'm kind of like a coin flip 50-50 ball with him. Not because I don't think that he can be a very productive NBA player, but because I don't know if I have the right or have seen enough to expect that of him. Sometimes he looks like a three-point marksman. Sometimes he looks like he can really drive the lane. I do think he is a shooter, though. I think that he's capable, and if he does not, then it will ultimately be on his own design and where he is on the floor. As a shooter, he doesn't really create his shots himself, which is very good, because I think that he could potentially, and in, of course, a perfect vacuum, he is our marksman. Yes, we picked up Svi this offseason, but I think that Johnny is the marksman that we could potentially be grooming. And if that is the case, he could be ambiguous when it comes to the lineups that we end up running. Defensively, I need to see more from him. I need to see, there's been a couple flashes, but I need to see guaranteed promise. I need to see something that makes me say, oh, I'm not going to lie, in a closing lineup, where we're down a couple points, you might want Johnny on the floor. Like, that's the type of defense I need to see him playing. Because being a three-point shooter isn't enough in today's league. You got to be able to play some defense, because you can't sit there and give up 12 and score 6 over a stretch. That can't happen, because I can't play you at that point. And obviously, yes, we're tanking this year, so take it with a grain of salt. But I think that Johnny has the ability to take a step forward. I think that he should. I don't know how many minutes he's going to get because of the type of rookies that we hit. We were not supposed to hit like this in the rookies, especially when we got the 10th pick later on in the 20s and then all the way at 32. We were not supposed to end up with 3 borderline lottery pick talents. We weren't supposed to get Cody Williams, Isaiah Collier, who was at one point before the last season projected to be the number 1 pick in this draft, and then Kyle Filipowski, who was cutting up at Duke. The only reason Kyle fell was because of his girlfriend situation, yada, yada, we get that. All right, it's behind us. Isaiah Collier had turnover issues, had injury issues. Things just didn't fall for him. Cody Williams just fell because of the other guys that also ended up showing out last year. So we had a terrific draft, and that's not a knock on Johnny because that doesn't mean that he's a bad player. But it also means these guys' ceilings might be higher than his, at the very least from the totality of a game's skill set for what they could do for the game, for the Utah Jazz specifically. But I do have high praise for Johnny overall. I don't dislike him, like I said. I'm just not the highest on him, which understandably so. We have other guys like we picked up Patty Mills in this offseason. I already said Svi. We've picked up just quite a few veteran pieces that I think are going to serve as mentorship roles. They're not going to be taking 10, 15, 20 minutes from guys. And if they do, I'm going to be very pissed because what are we actually doing? Give us a direction. We're supposed to be taking this year. That's what we've been told. That's what we've been informed of. We want Cooper Flagg. We get it. If we don't get Cooper Flagg, we want Edgecombe. We want all these other guys. Really, if missing the playoffs, I don't think is enough because you can't justify doing this to your team if you just miss the playoffs. If that's your only goal and you're fine winning 30 games and then we potentially get the 10th pick again. Yes, last year we get it. Atlanta missed the playoffs, but they ended up getting the number 1 overall pick, right? I understand. At the same time, though, that's not a guarantee and it's not a high enough percentage odds to justify doing it. I think that we should just go ahead. This be the year. We're just as bad as we can be. Let it all out there. Let the rookies burn their minutes. Let the young guys show us what they got. Sit Lauri in winnable games, in games where we're playing, the Boston Celtics and stuff like that. Go ahead and let Lauri cook. You know what I'm saying? Let Colin Sexton cook. But in the other games that we're capable of winning or we should win, go ahead. Let his ankle be sore. Ankle soreness, soreness in his Achilles, whatever the case may be. Just go ahead and let those guys take a little bit of a rest. And we'll go ahead and tank this year out. That said, and this is a very strong that said, right? I don't like tanking basketball. I don't like losing games on purpose. I hate losing more than I like winning. So me being willing to sit there and say, we should tank is a very big, strong step because I understand nobody's going to come here in free agency. But at the same time, we better hit. Because if we sit here and tank this bad and we don't get a top 5 pick, there's no point in tanking anymore. I've seen enough. I don't want to tank next year with the Boozer Twins. I don't want to see tank on tank on tank on tank on tank. I'm good. Let me be. I grew up a Hornets fan before covering Utah Jazz basketball. So I've seen terrible basketball. I've watched terrible picks. I've watched mediocre play. I watched us have a peak with Al Jefferson and Kemba Walker and Michael Gilchrist. I've seen it. I would rather just sit there and say, you know what? We're going to swing for the fences and just be as good of a team as we can be with Lauri Markkanen and Colin Sexton just leading the charge. I'm perfectly fine with that. And will it be a championship caliber team? Probably not, but we can find a way to make a trade. And at that point, would BI be a very reasonable option for me next offseason if he's still on that team? Yeah, for sure, if they don't re-sign him. But outside of that, I need that. Go ahead. We're going to tank this year. If we don't get the desired results, please don't put us through a tank again. It's bad enough that we can't convince people to stay or to come here in free agency. We can trade for guys, that's for sure. Danny Ainge doesn't like spending certain things on guys, but he'll definitely be willing to trade for somebody. But we can't convince guys to come to us in free agency. We've tried and it has failed. We recognize that. We're a small market team. Things just don't work out that way. I grew up a Hornets fan. Trust me. I know what free agency pool look like, gang. It's not very good. It's not very good. If there's not a very strong night scene, very strong for endorsements, very strong for their personal brand or business, they're probably not interested in coming. And I understand. It makes sense. But I like winning. So if I concede and I'm going to watch all 82 games of development that will most likely lead to losses, please pay us back with some sort of win. With that being said, though, thanks for tuning in this video. If you lasted this long, go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, turn on post notifications. It's been your boy Wraith Hoops. Become a member, drop a donation, help support the content. And as always, good morning, good evening, and good night. No matter where you're on the globe watching, thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys